Hey guys, it's Bang from About PC Gaming here, bringing you some behind the scenes. I don't know, I'm trying something a little different, showing you how I do some of my video editing. So just kick back and I'll take you through what I'm working on. So right now I'm playing Rage 2. As you know, Rage 2 came out 14th of May, I believe. So it's been a game I've actually been enjoying. For me, Rage 2 is like an open world kind of Doom with vehicles and free roaming. So for me, I don't really see what's not to like, but hey, to each their own. I've got no objection to anyone not liking the game. So I am monitoring the chat, so get involved guys. I can see No Delid Gamer in there. How's it going, man? I can see Oasis Sakaria. I am so grateful to be watching this, thanks. And I can see Daywood and Saad says hi. Okay, so what I'm working on, I thought you guys would be interested in how I make my comparison videos. So I use Cyberlink PowerDirector 17. Well, really, I've bought the 1 year subscription to PowerDirector 365. Basically, you get everything for 1 year, then you just purchase the license again. So for me, I pay about £60 for 1 year, and I get pretty much all the support I need. So this is my favorite software. I do use Adobe sorry, what is it called now? My mind's gone blank. I do use Adobe Premiere every now and then, but that's just really to resize like ultra wide videos and things like that. This is where my bread and butter is. So kick back guys, I'll explain what I'm doing as I go through. So you guys will see me make a video in real time. This video I am going to be using on the channel, so you guys will see the whole building process, the whole editing process, and kind of what I go through behind the scenes. So it does take a lot of time, so maybe you guys could, I don't know, you'll find a sense of appreciation for what it does take to run a gaming YouTube channel. A lot of time does go into it, so it's something that you have to be kind of serious about. So let's get into it. I'll try and read some of the comments as I go along. Nelly D Gamer says, yep, same here. So yeah, just get involved guys. I'll try to read out your comments as much as I can. So I've got all of this is what I call the cutting board floor. You have all of your media that you're going to use for your project. So I've got about 6 sections of gameplay from Rage 2. I've got my intro. I'll play that now. So this is the intro I'm going to be using for this video, and this is like my preview. So I've got quite a few intros. I know it's not to everyone's taste, but I like to kind of brand my work. There's a lot of thieves out there that like to take your stuff and re-upload it. At least if someone does do it, they'll know it was from me. That's kind of the point of it, really. So there's that. So I've picked the song that I'm going to be using on this project. It's called, a lot of guys pressure me to put the name of the songs in every video, and I can't be bothered, to be honest, but this one's called Polyphony Adrift. You've probably heard it. Is kind of a song that I use for all of my comparisons or specific comparisons. I like this song, it works very well, so you guys may have heard it a few times. Daewoo says, why don't you crack the software when you don't have to pay? Honestly, I want this company to stay in business, so sometimes you do need to support the developers, or they'll never, if they stop making this software, that wouldn't be good for me. So if me buying it for 1 year helps them create and improve the software, then that's good. So you can't expect to take everything for free. So if you can afford it, then support the developer. That's what I say. Okay, so let's get into it anyway. So right now I'm doing a comparison in Rage. So with Rage 2, I'm playing the game vanilla, but I kind of saw someone today on my channel basically use NVIDIA Freestyle. That's like the best way I can describe it, it's like a built-in suite effects for NVIDIA, and you can kind of toggle the sharpness to depth of field. You can add all these effects to the game to make it look, you can basically enhance the game to look much better. So I've kind of played around with a custom profile with NVIDIA Freestyle, sorry. So I'm basically doing a comparison between the game in vanilla. And for those who don't know, vanilla means basically standard, nothing's changed, everything as normal. And I'll be using a comparison against the game with the same settings, of course, same resolution, just with the NVIDIA Freestyle and my custom settings. So I'll show you what I've done so far. So the top layer is the media that I'm using. In between, I've got a transition between the two clips. So this transition is called, I'll show it to you. This transition specifically is called wipe. It basically wipes from bottom to the top and kind of blends the two pieces of media together. So that's what the effect that's going on here. So I'll show you what I've done so far. So I'll start off by showing the vanilla, and then the wipe effect happens, and then it switches to the NVIDIA Freestyle gameplay. And of course, I then put both clips together side by side, and you guys can kind of get a better glimpse of what the difference is between having the filter on and having the filter off. So to do this, you have to use two layers. Top layer is, I work from left to right. So top layer is the vanilla, bottom layer is the NVIDIA Freestyle, the one with the what do we call it, the filter. And you have to basically make sure they're paired, make sure they both have the same length. This software is really good because it basically snaps everything in place. So if you drag something, it will stop to the same length as the media above. So it's quite easy to line things up. To crop, you do have to do a bit of cropping to make sure both clips are on the same, are basically balanced. But this software has got something called guidelines. So I'll show you how to enable that. Trying to find where it is now. It's called grid lines actually. Bear with me. I'll show you which one I use. Okay, so there's something called grid lines. I use 2x2. It basically slices the your preview screen up by 4 times, so you can kind of edit and make sure everything's in place and everything's equal. So you don't want to have more on the left and less on the right. So you want everything to be lined up. So it's good to work with like a guideline to kind of make sure that your work is even. Try and read a few comments now because there's quite a few coming in. Let's have a look. Herc Keck says you bought also 200 plus games. I've bought a lot of games, but I don't think I've bought 200. Thomas John says, when do you think Intel will launch about PCI Express 4.0 and will be a lot better than from PCI Express 3.0? Yes, the speed of 4.0 is quite superior to 3.0. However, it's not going to make a massive impact on gaming so far. There's only possibly 2 cards that are starting to test the limits of the PCI Express 3.0 bandwidth, and that's the RTX 2080 Ti and the RTX Titan, possibly the Titan V, but honestly it's not going to make a massive impact in gaming. For professional applications it may provide extra performance. We'll have to see. I can't really speculate too much on it without a lot of information, so let's try and stick to the topic at hand anyway. So I'm going to move on with my project. I've done the first bit of media, one from vanilla, one to NVIDIA Freestyle, and then both compared together. So you guys can kind of get to have a look at each of them separately, then you get to have a look at them together, and then I move on. When I make my projects, I don't know if you listen to music like I do, but if you're like a musician, every song has a specific amount of beats, and if you edit correctly, you can kind of edit within the music. So the music kind of dictates when you switch your scene, and then it kind of makes it go with it. It's kind of like a flow. When you've been editing long enough, you can kind of pick your music specifically because of the beat it has and the amount of time you have to work within that beat before you have to change. Now that piece of media I used was at night time, so let's pick something from the day. This seems like the vanilla because it's quite blurry. This is my edited one with freestyle, so I want to go with the vanilla first. Now I don't want any audio from the game, so I split from the video and audio. I separate them and then I just delete the audio, and I'll put the video where I want it, and that's at the top layer. And let's just continue the project, shall we, and see how it goes. So as you can see, sometimes when you record with NVIDIA Shadowplay, it kind of, depending on what resolution, it kind of skips sometimes at the very start, and I saw that there. So I want to remove that. I don't want that in my video. It's not going to look very good. So let's start again. And at that and exactly this point of the song, I want to change the scene. So as I was saying, if you listen to the song in a specific way, you can kind of hear when you need to add a different scene or change the image that you have on display. So it's kind of something you develop when you've been editing for a while, or if you want to kind of synchronize your project with the music that you're using. So I'll put a little reminder. So if you wanted to mark something down, you can literally add a timeline marker, and this one's just going to be called change scene. I'm doing this for the benefit of you guys. I don't need to do this because I can kind of edit this very, very quickly. So I know I'm gonna make a transition to the next scene, so I need to have a little bit of overhead. So I'll keep a little more extra than I need, because when I transition from vanilla to the NVIDIA freestyle scene, I'm gonna lose some of that original clip. So let's get rid of some of it, because I know it might skip. I know I'm doing this very quickly, but I'll try and slow down and explain what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do now is add that transition. And to add a transition, you basically put the two pieces of media that you want together to transition between one to another. So I'm going to add the wipe transition. You basically hover over the two scenes, drop it, and then it just merges them together. So this will start from the bottom and wipe up into the second selected media to the right. So let's see how that looks. Let's see if the timing is how I want it. I'm probably gonna have to make a few tweaks to get it right, but it has to be done. So that was basically perfect. See, I remember that basically this character lowered his gun, and that isn't something I want to happen, so I need to basically get rid of all of this and do it again. So I'm just going to snap it back together, use the wipe transition, and let's see how this works out again. So let's try that again, shall we? So this is trying to run, because my PC is pretty quick, I can do all of this in real time, and it doesn't really affect performance that bad. And at this exact point, this is where I'd want to fade out this scene. So I split it, I remove it, and it's gone. So I'm going to need a copy of both of these files before I go ahead and fade them out and add the text for the benefit of you guys, so you kind of know what I'm doing and what you're looking at. So I'm just going to put these over here because I'm going to need to use them again. So for this one is the vanilla. So I've got a third layer which you use for labeling things, and I'm going to label this one vanilla. And again, for those of you who don't know, vanilla is not just a flavor, it's more of a term to describe ordinary, normal, standard, whatever you want to call it, just nothing edited, stock, whatever you want to call it. That's what vanilla means when it comes to games or an image quality. This is a little bit longer than it should be, so let's move it back. Okay, I'm going to stop now and get to some of the comments. I can see Juan Hendrik Pottage says hey, Sam Roke says hi, and Tulio Belia says, well, doesn't say anything, it's just got two emojis licking their lips. I'm not too really sure what to make of that, but whatever. Let's move on. I'm going to try and make this as interesting as I can. It is video editing. It does take a lot of time and it can be boring, but maybe one of you guys will learn something from this if you use a similar software. So I know that the timing, let's just overwrite that because I don't know why it should snap in place about here. So let's just make sure that these are within the limits that they need to be. Okay, so what I like to do is kind of have the text to be halfway in between the transition to the next scene. So I want to increase the size of my timeline a little bit so it helps me make that step even a bit easier to reach. So as you can see, it's right in between the transition. So vanilla should fade out about halfway up the screen when through the transition. Then I'm going to put in NVIDIA Freestyle for the second scene, so the labeling changes so you guys know when the transition has happened and you know what you're looking at. So basically this part is for the benefit of the viewer. Okay, so let's see that in motion, and then I'm going to put, obviously I'm going to fade things out so it's a bit more smooth. So part 1, you're looking at the vanilla scene, stock gameplay of course, and then transition happens and then it says freestyle, and then you know you're looking at the edited gameplay. So for me, freestyle kind of appeared a lot too quickly, so I'm going to make a few adjustments. This should be extended just a little bit more, and then this will start just a little bit later because I think the vanilla logo disappeared a little bit too quickly. Let's try that again. Yeah, for me that's a lot better. Just need to make sure this stops at the right time. Okay, so that's perfect, that stops. I need to make sure the freestyle label ends with this clip, and now I can fade this image in because you want to make sure it fades from black because it's just going to appear to the viewer sharp and out of place, going from dark to light so quickly. It's never a smooth transition, so you want to fade in and fade out different images. So let's go back to the very start. Once I do a lot of editing, I tend to save it quite a lot because as good as my PC is, software can fail, so your work can crash and you don't want to start from the start again. Let's get to a few comments. One Hendrik Pochage says, how do you guys feel about pineapple on pizza? Okay, I'm going to read the chat when there's actually something constructive going on, but you guys just talk amongst yourselves. So I'm going to play back what I've done so far. So again, for anyone that's joining the stream, basically I'm just showing you behind the scenes how I do a bit of my editing. So this is going to be a side-by-side comparison video from RAID using the vanilla settings to the NVIDIA Freestyle settings. As you can see there, something wasn't quite right. These two comparisons are meant to start at the exact same time. This one was a little bit early. I need to make sure it ends at the same time as well. So this is the benefit of playing things back, just to make sure everything's in place. So I'll start it from here and see if it works again this time. Okay, so these two should start at the same time now. A little bit slower, but that could just be to the preview loading up a little bit slow. But if you do it, yeah, it's still a little bit. Yeah, okay, so that's a bit better now. Let's try that. It's still not synchronized. You need to make sure that is synchronized or it's not going to look good. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to decrease the quality from full preview resolution just to 1080p. That way the project will kind of preview a lot easier. That way I can realize if things are in synchronization, because that's very important. Seeing the end result is not as much as important while you're building it. So let's see how that looks. So as you can see, this one barely faded in, and that needs to be dealt with. I'm not too sure what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-fade these out just to make sure they're in sync. So I want to disable the fade, for both and then refade both images. So what you do is you literally just drag this image up. Alright, let's try that again. Now hopefully it'll work this time. Okay, let's do the same with this. That's fine. Let's put the fade back in. This time it should synchronize up. Okay, let's play it again, and hopefully shouldn't be any issues. Okay, that was near perfect, so I can't complain too much about that. That's fine. I'm happy with that. Yeah, that's okay. I can live with that. Right, and at this point, I'll be comparing both images together. This is when things get a little bit tricky. So, okay, so that's the vanilla. That's the freestyle image. So I always have the stock image at the top, and then the edited image at the bottom. So I want to have a small amount. Let's see how long it will go. And this is the point where I'd want the image to change to the next scene. So I'm going to make my cut here because I don't need this image to be any longer than that. And I'm going to resize this one to be just as long because they need to synchronize up. Now it's a lot easier to edit multi-layers separately. So this is going to be on the left hand side. So I'm going to drag this image to the left, and I pretty much just want to show just a gun. So that's okay. I don't really need to do any cropping or editing there. So that's okay. I'm happy with that. However, I'm going to put this one on the right hand side. And of course, I need it to look exactly the same as the left hand image. And this is when you need to do a bit of cropping. So I click the tools icon. I click crop, zoom and pan. And what you want to do is you want to move the image into focus. So I'm going to move it to about here. And that's almost the same as this. It's not exactly the same, but it's close to it. And now you want to put this image directly under your top image, and these two should show up pretty much at the same time. So let's just see how that looks. So this image, of course, I'm moving around. Okay, so I can split it from here because I don't need any more than that. And the good thing about Cyberlink is I can just drag the image and stretch it. So you can only stretch the image to the amount of the original media. You can't add more media on that was never there. But if you've trimmed it, you can literally just stretch it out until as much as you need. Let's have a look at the chat. We've got 100 Potter saying, I don't know, he's not even speaking to me, so no worries. I'm just going to continue going through this because I do want to get this video up to date for you guys. So let's see how this looks. And at that point, it will change to another image. So that's the importance of editing your image to work with the music you're using. So you need to make the music have it. Basically, the music tells you when you need to change your image, and it adds a dramatic effect to the editing process. So that's part of something I like to do in my comparison videos anyway. So that one's all done. All I literally need to do is drag this label, layer, and basically it's going to name the left hand image vanilla, and it's going to name the right hand image NVIDIA Freestyle. Again, this is the benefit for you guys. You can see what you're looking at. So let's have a look at this section of the video in real time. So let's just play it through. So what's happening here, you're looking at the vanilla image. This is just Rage 2, 4K maxed out, nothing extra. Then transitions to my edited file, which is the NVIDIA freestyle profile that I've made. In my opinion, looks a lot better. And of course, I then show both images side by side. This is where you guys can make your observations and say, hey, this looks better, or the stock looks better. So you make your choice, but it's just so you guys can have the opportunity to kind of look at both images and make a more informed decision. So I've so far successfully done 2 bits of my media from the 6 that I have. So back to my cutting room floor, I've now successfully transitioned all 3 images and labeled them successfully. I can now move on to something else. So I'm going to choose this image. So this looks like the vanilla and this looks like the freestyle. So let's start with the vanilla as normal. When I bring the file down onto the timeline, it's of course with sound. I need to unlink the video from the audio, remove the audio because I've got a song playing in the back. I do not want anything from the game being in this video. So again, sometimes when you record with NVIDIA Shadowplay, there is a bit of a stutter at the very start, so I need to make sure there is no stuttering in this. There isn't, so I can just pretty much drag this into the project straight away. And let's get the length of how long I want this clip to play. So I'll listen to the music and I'll let the music decide when I need to make the snip. So I'll tell you when. So it's at this exact point is when I want the transition to start to go over to the new file. So I'm not going to make a split here because when you, again, as I explained earlier, when you make a transition, it takes away a little bit from your original media. So you need to kind of give yourself a little bit of overhead. That should be enough. I'll split that and I'll get the project that I want, the piece of media that I want to compare it to. Again, unlink it from the audio. Remove the audio, check if there's any skipping in the file, which there isn't, so I can pretty much use this straight away. Now what I want to do is use that transition again, so I go to transitions and I use wipe, so it starts on the bottom to the top. I then place this transition in between both files and it merges them together. So I need this to start transitioning at the point in the music where I want the scene to change. So I need to make sure everything lines up. So I need to watch this back several times to make sure it's all in sync. So that was pretty much perfect. And I would stop it here because I want to change the scene. So I'm going to split that, remove it because I do not need any more. Again, I need to make a final scene showing both images together. So I make a copy of the stock, the vanilla scene and the edited scene. And I continue to edit these two. So I need to start labeling these. So I'll go with vanilla first, of course. So let's just put that down here. This needs to line up exactly with this image. And I want it to be about 3/4 into the transition. So that's okay. And then I get NVIDIA Freestyle. It's just basically a label, again, for the benefit of you viewers so you know what you're looking at. I'll place this down here and I'll make sure it's just 1/4 of the way into the transition. Don't want it overwriting anything. I don't know why there's an overwrite there. Let's move to red. Okay, that's fine. And you want to make sure this is in line with the image so it doesn't start labeling something that you don't want to show. So what I'm going to do now is just fade this image in. And I want to fade the last one out. Again, you don't want to have a harsh transition between images because it just looks very bad. So let's have a look at this before I move on. David Limbach says, mercy for the videos, greets from Switzerland. So that's okay. Thanks for watching. So let's see how this looks. So as you can see, this faded straight in on the part of the music that I wanted. and as you can see, the transition starts exactly where I want it to start, and then this also fades out where I need it to be. And at this point is where I'll start the comparison. So this is the vanilla image. I put the vanilla at the top. I then need to share the screen space with both images because they're going to be showing at the same time. So again, this is already perfectly lined up how I want it. All I want to do is really show the gun, and that's okay. And this image is a lot easier to work again on its own. I'll put it into place in a moment, but I need to make sure the gun is pretty much exactly the same as the left hand side. So I need to do a little bit of cropping. So again, I return to my power tools and I go to crop, zoom and pan, and I will move this image to the left hand side, which is about here, and we pretty much have the same image. And now too, the magic of it is you have layers. So this is the top layer, this is my second layer. I need to have this image directly under the top layer, and they need to be exactly the same length, and this allows you to have two images sharing the same screen but they're on different layers. So I don't want anything overlapping. This is why I'm using grid line to make sure the area I want to work in is perfectly balanced and perfectly symmetrical. So now I can play this. They should both run at the same time, and you can see a clear difference between the image on the left hand side and the image on the right hand side. It's down to you as the viewer to make your decision on what looks better. That's the point of the video. But let's see how this looks. So there's a little bit of skipping, but that's to be expected. This is only a preview. Once you render the image after building it, it will be super smooth. Now the image should have already changed. So I need to listen to the beat to know when to cut the image. And it's at this point where as well I'd want to cut the music. So another thing what you can do, and this should pretty much work with any software, for anyone that does a lot of video editing, having really fast drives like M.2 NVMe drives or just really fast solid state drives, your PC has to do a lot of basically reading and writing, or mainly reading when it comes to video editing. So if you have a fast drive, you will have such smooth playback in your preview. It just helps you edit your videos a lot easier. So I can now confidently fade these in and label them accordingly because I know this is all lined up the way I want it. Okay, let's read some of the comments. Okay, so you guys are pretty much talking amongst yourselves at the moment, so that's okay. I'll just continue with what I'm doing. So that's the top image done, and I'm going to do the bottom image now, and then I'm going to just put the label. Good thing is it's pretty much going to be a 1, 2, 3 rinse and repeat, so I can keep using the labels over and over and over again. I don't need to make new labels for every single scene. It's literally vanilla, freestyle, and vanilla and freestyle together. So let's see how this looks, starting from the very first scene. So let's go, and then I can move on to the next scene. So again, when I do a specific amount of work, I like to save my project. That way, if anything crashes, I can kind of continue from where I left off. So let's keep going. So that's perfect. That's exactly how I want it. I can now move on to a different scene. So I like to transition between dark and light. Let's pick another daylight scene. So there was a scene in the game where I'm kind of looking over a valley to a bridge. This looks like the vanilla. I don't think that's the vanilla. I just got to double check. Yeah, so this was the freestyle version. This is the vanilla. With the vanilla, you can see it's a lot darker. There's a lot less detail in the bridge. And that's what freestyle is able to bring out. So this is the difference I want to show in the video. So this is the vanilla image. Again, you guys will get familiar with these steps. Unlink the audio from the video. and then just play the file. Just want to make sure it's smooth before you start editing it. So as you can see, there's no skipping there, so I can pretty much throw that in. Kind of gather how long I want that image to play by listening to the music. Now I would usually cut the music here, but because I'm going to be using a transition in my other scene, I need a little bit of overhead. So that should be enough. So I'm going to cut the image here, remove that, get the second image, which is the freestyle image of the same scene, remove the audio again, check if the image is, there's no skipping at the very start. Yeah, that seems to be very smooth, so that's fine. So I put this side by side, be careful not to overwrite anything, and then I do the transition. So it's just really rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Once you get into making these kind of videos, you kind of basically repeat that same step a series of times. So I'm going to play this now and see if the transition starts at the point of the music that I desire. So that's perfect. It starts to transition to the next scene exactly where I want it. And at this point, I'm going to cut because that's where I want the music to stop. Again, I need to make a copy of both of these files because they're going to be used in the next part of the video. So I'm going to make my resources now because it's just annoying to edit the video, edit the media, and then have to unedit the media because you have to use the same scene again. So it just saves a bit of time. So now I have the task of labeling this, which is very easy because I've pretty much already done this. So we'll go with vanilla first. And we want this 3/4 into the transition. So by the time the transition wipes to the very top, it then fades in the words freestyle and then vanilla disappears. We don't want vanilla disappearing too early. It kind of confuses the viewer what they're looking at because they'll be stuck with two scenes at the same time. And that's not the image, that's not the message I want to get across. So that seems to be transitioning out at the perfect time. I'll then put in the label, which is NVIDIA Freestyle. I'll put that in. And then you just want to make sure this is in line with the media above, of course. I'm very confident enough to fade in and fade out these two because I believe that my work here is done when it comes to this specific part of the clip. Of course, I'll watch it back before starting the last scene, so let's see how that looks. So again, the vanilla scene, clearly labeled so you know what you're looking at while you're watching it on my YouTube channel. And then it transitions into the freestyle image, and you can see that there is a difference there. And the last scene I'm going to do is having both of these side by side so you can have a clear opportunity to have a look at them both at the same time and make your decision on what looks better. So I'm going to start with the vanilla, of course, and I need to occupy half of the screen because we're going to be screen sharing at the moment. So again, this is pretty much all of the image I want to show, pretty much just the gun. To be honest, it would probably be best to show a bit more of the bridge. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to crop this scene, which I don't usually do, but I'll do it for this scene specifically because I believe that looking into the backdrop kind of adds a bit more perspective on what I'm trying to achieve with my freestyle image. So I'm going to click the tools icon. Sorry, I need to get off keyframe. That's not what I want to be on. So click the image that I want to edit, click tools, click power tools, and then click crop, pan, and zoom. I want to show a little bit more to the left. So what I want to do is move to about here of the gun so we get a bit more of the scenery within the image. So as you can see now, the gun's further to the right and you can clearly see the bridge within the image. And this is going to add a bit more value to the comparison that I'm trying to make. So now the job I have now is to get this image to look exactly the same as that image. So again, we're screen sharing, so I need to pull this to half of the image. As you can see, there's 4 dotted lines, so it divides the screen into 4 even parts. This is the grid line that I use. It just helps me keep my work all symmetrical, and it comes in very, very handy. It also snaps in place once you reach 50% of the screen, so I know I've got to work within this parameter to get that image to look exactly the same. So again, with this piece of media selected, I can go to crop, pan and zoom, and I can then line this up how I want it to look. So I want to, let's just say I want to get the bridge in, and I want to get to the edge of that gun. So about this much should be right. So that looks about right. So I'm going to have a look at both images at the same time. Make sure these are exactly the same length. And yeah, that's about right. As you can see a little bit more of this gun. So technically I need to move this one to the right a little bit, which is a quick fix. I'll go back to crop, pan and zoom, and I'll move this one to the left a little bit, sorry. So yeah, so that's about right now. That's about even. Can't always get things right first time, but you can give yourself a good estimate. So for me, both of these images are pretty much the same. There's a little bit of an inch between the gun on both sides. I could probably make it a slightly bit more to the left, but that's just nitpicking. I think this image is fairly even, so I'm happy to start fading these 2 images in and out and labeling them before I move on to the next scene. So that's pretty much how you do these kind of editing videos, these comparison videos. Show both images on their own and then show them together. That's pretty much the kind of template that most people use, and it works the best, I think. Let's have a look at the comments. Let's have a look. Penbees Gaming World says No Man's Sky Beyond update would be good to feature Bankrupt PC Gamer. Possibly. To be honest, I did play No Man's Sky for a little bit, but because the game pretty much had no kind of end in sight, you're literally just looking for this center of the universe or something, and there's nothing there. It kind of put me off the game. Of course, they've updated No Man's Sky a lot. There's a lot more to do now, but the game left a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not really in a rush to go back there, to be honest. So one day I'll look into it when I get a bit of time, but for now I'm okay. So all I need to do now is label it finally. So I've got the labels already queued up. So this one's going to have vanilla on the left, and it's going to have NVIDIA Freestyle on the right. And I just need to make sure this is perfectly symmetrical with the 2 projects I have in the above layers, and they are now. So I'm happy with that. I can now move on to a third scene. So far I have done 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 2 more to do. So I've only got 6 comparisons to show you guys. So I'm going to use it's going to end up being about a 3-minute video, not too long. But these videos don't need to be. It's just kind of to show off what you can do with NVIDIA Freestyle. So this is quite a light, bright image. I'm going to go back to the darkness now. So I'm going to show this scene. So this scene is, I think you're in a town. I think it's called something Barrels. I can't remember what it's called, but it's one of the main cities or the main kind of settlements in the game that you kind of frequent quite a bit, because it's where one of the main characters are in the game. So I'm not going to speak too much about Rage 2. If you're interested in Rage, of course, just get it and play it. I'm just going to kind of focus on the video editing for now. So let's get this done as quickly as possible. So I'm just going to kind of work now. You guys have pretty much seen, I've tried to explain what I'm doing so you guys can kind of watch how I do it. So I'm going to shut up for a bit, read some comments, and just kind of get this done and get this built and put on the channel. This is probably the only video I'm going to do today. Pretty much just finished a long day of work, and I've just come home and I thought, hey, let's add some content to the channel and just give you guys something to watch, because I do like to provide you guys with content. So I'm going to take this time to let you know that I do have a Patreon channel. Some of my supporters are in here, like Nelly D Gamer, long time backer. Thanks for the support, been riding with me for at least 2 years, so everyone knows about Adpocalypse. Pretty much just slash the funding for what you get from your channel. So I'm just kind of giving you guys some perspective of how much time and effort I put into the channel behind the scenes. So hopefully you appreciate the content I put out. So let's get back into it, shall we? So I'd like to cut it here, but I need to give it a bit of an overlap because I'm going to make a transition. But that's the leeway I've given myself. I'm going to split this, remove this now, and let's get the, I'm going to make sure I'm using the right image. Yeah, so we're getting the freestyle image now. Let's just have a quick look to make sure there's no skipping. No, that's fine. So we can just drag that straight in, throw a transition in between, and hopefully it lines up the way I want it. So let's head over to transition pipe bar, and we'll use wipe. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so this is exactly where I'm going to cut it. Again, that's the importance of making sure you're using the music that you're editing with effectively. It dictates when you change the scene, and it kind of makes you, as a viewer, you're a bit more engaged with what's going on. So it's something you pick up naturally when you edit, as long as I've been editing. Or if you just know about music and you know how the pacing of music works, you can kind of work with it with your media. So I'm happy with that. I'm just going to fade this in and fade this out and label them accordingly as well. This is the kind of step I don't need to be too cautious with because it's not something you can mess up easily if you know what you're looking at. So this yellow and kind of blue bar is the transition. I want my text to end about here, 3/4 of the way in. So I'm going to grab vanilla. I'm going to paste that from the start of the vanilla image. So you make sure it lines up. As you can see, it snaps in, creates a blue line to show that this is where this image starts and this is where your text is going to start. Everything's going to start at the same time. You now want to make sure that this fades out at the right time, 3/4 of the way in, about here. And then I then put the NVIDIA freestyle label to transition in within the next scene. So again, for the benefit of the viewer, you know the transition's just happened and you're now looking at a non-vanilla image. You're looking at the freestyle image. So let's see how that looks. Want to make sure that's right. I did kind of overwrite something there. That's not exactly what I wanted to do, but it seems okay. Let's give it a quick play before I move on. Now at this point we're going to do a comparison between the two images. As you can see, I got a bit carried away with myself. I forgot to make a copy of these two bits of media, so I'm going to have to unedit this by basically disabling the fade. So it's just, you basically create extra work if you don't concentrate on what you're doing. So I now need to unfade this and unfade that, 2 or 4 clicks that I didn't mean to make, but I just kind of got carried away with what I'm doing. So let's start with the vanilla image and let's drag this to the left hand side of the screen. So you're kind of getting used to how I'm doing this. So not showing too much of the scene here. As you can see, the gun's holstered. So in this scene, the gun's not it's not the most important thing. So I'm gonna crop the image and kind of get a part of the scene that I think is most important for the comparison. So for me, I would say just the kind of the front of that kind of bar with the neon lights and the lamppost. That's pretty much all I need to capture in the scene. And I can now, I've kind of moved it the wrong way, so we got to move it the opposite direction. Sometimes I get my left and right messed up when it comes to editing. So I would say I'll take about this much of the gun just from where the iron sight is, and the rest of it is to do with the bar. So for me, that's all I want you guys to concentrate on. The gun is really not important in this scene, so that's fine for me. I now have to make sure this scene is pretty much a carbon copy of that scene. So first thing we want to do is move, we want to move the scene to the right, sorry. And then we want to make sure we have the same parameters, so it looks like an even image. So let's try the same thing, but we want to do it in the opposite direction. So about here should do it. So what I do, try to imagine a line where, see this blue circle here? This is where the cutoff point is. Try to imagine a line cutting off all of this image. So that's kind of how I place my images. So as you can see, we're literally at the edge of the iron sight. So that blue little dot is kind of where the cutoff point is. It's something you have to visualize yourself, but you get used to it. I've invested so many years using Cyberlink PowerDirector that I really can't be bothered to learn a different software, because I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'm very, very comfortable using Cyberlink now. So as you can see, you're looking at this edge of the roof. You can see far more on the right hand side than you can see on the left. So that means my crop wasn't precise. I do need to make a slight adjustment. So I'm going to move this out of the line of the upper image so you don't make any mistakes. So I'm going to go back to the cutting board and I'm going to remove this image a little bit to the right till we get to about here, and that should be a lot more in line. So if we put this back where it was, this should now look a lot more. So it's a little bit, I've moved it a little bit to the right too much, so I just got to move it back a tiny bit, and then that will be pretty much a perfect synchronized image. So you do have to make slight adjustments, but you get there in the end. So that's all done. I'm happy with that. As you can see, these are pretty much the same, so you kind of know you're pretty much looking. You can have a look at this little kind of transformer on the wall. They're pretty much in the exact same place, so both images are equal and you're looking at pretty much the same image, just of course they're different scenes. So I'm happy with that. I can kind of continue with my edit now. So I'm happy to fade both of these images in and out just to clean up the transition a little bit. So I'll fade it out, fade it in and out the top image. I'm going to fade in and out the bottom image, and the fade will always be in sync with the image that's above and below, providing that both images are the same length. So you don't need to worry about synchronizing the fades. That would all be done automatically, which is another great thing about this software. So final piece now is to make sure the correct labels the left hand side vanilla and the right hand side NVIDIA freestyle, and then I can move on to the next scene. So in double quick time, I've pretty much just done a major part of the video. As you can see there's a slight oversight by me there. As you can see, the bottom image is a little bit longer, so that's not good. What I need to do is make sure you can pretty much trim an image just by moving it, and when you're in line with the image above, it will snap in place. So I now need to redo that fade, so that I need to fade it, take the fade out off, and usually it would move the little green, this little green line pretty much it tracks the opacity of the image you're looking at, and it hasn't shifted it properly, so it should correct itself once you put the fade back on, which it has. As you can see, it's all symmetrical now, so that's all kind of fixed itself. So let's have a quick look and see if it worked out. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. So that worked out pretty well. I'm happy with that. I can now move on. So we have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the final scene I'm gonna do, and it would be another bright scene. So this is the final scene of the video, and I can get to producing the video, and it should be up on the channel within the next hour or so. The i9-9900K will render this in double quick time at 4K, but I'll be at the mercy of YouTube to give you the 4K quality. I will not publish this video until 4K is available. That's something I kind of look at behind the scenes, because if you publish a video too early, it'll be in 360p. The last thing you want to do is watch a graphical comparison video in 360p. It just kind of ruins it for you. So I always make sure my videos are at the best quality before I publish them, just to give you guys the best experience. So let's start with the vanilla image again. So for the benefit of any new people that's coming into the stream, let's have a quick look at the comments. We've got Alberta saying, is this Sony Vegas program? Nope, this is Cyberlink PowerDirector, my favorite editing software. I've been using it for years now, and I'm very, very familiar with it, very, very comfortable with it as well. So let's just have a quick look at the image just to make sure there's no skipping. Sometimes, again, Shadowplay does do that every now and then. Nope, this one seemed to be fine, so we can kind of just pop this here and just listen to the music to see when I need to make the transition. Hold on, bear with me, I need to just quickly listen to this. Yeah, that's okay. It's just that the preview is a little bit slower than it should be, but it's okay. I'm happy with that transition. This is where I would usually cut it, but because I've got a bit of a transition coming in next, I need to give myself a bit of overhead, because when you use a transition, it takes a little bit away from your current media. So I'm going to get the freestyle scene, unlink the audio from the video. I know some of you guys have heard me say this over and over again, but this is mainly for the benefit of the new people that have just come into the stream. And I basically watch the image by itself just to make sure that it's smooth. It is, so that's fine. I can now snap that to the side and go to my transitions window. And this is the transition I use for comparisons, wipe, so it will go from bottom to the top, fusing both images together. So let's see how that works. Let's see if it starts to transition at the point of the music where I desire. So let's just have a quick listen. As you can see, the vanilla icon, the label was a little bit too long, so it kind of overflowed over to the new image. That's something I don't want, so I had to make sure that was lined up correctly. So let's do that again. A little bit too early, so this needs to be a tiny bit longer. So put these back together and let's throw the transition in again, and this should start the transition at the point of the music that I want. That's perfect. Okay, so that's what I want, that's fine. And at this point, I'm going to go back a tiny bit. This is where I want to split, because that's where the music's telling me I need to change the scene. And because the music has a rhythm throughout the whole comparison video, every single scene that you're watching will be the same length. It is going to be perfectly balanced, and that's the good thing about editing to the rhythm of music, because everything will be in the same kind of length. And it's worked out quite well for me for every single time I've done this kind of comparison. It all depends on the song though, so the song does have a massive part into how it comes out if you edit in the style I do. So these two are fine. I'm happy to fade these in and out and label them and move on to the final scene where I have both of these side by side, and you can then kind of look at the differences for yourself. So yeah, so we start with vanilla. So this is the third layer, actually 1, 2, so I'm using about 4 layers for this. So top layer for the single media, second layer is for the music, third layer is for the additional media when I'm sharing a screen with 2 different videos, and the fourth layer is literally just the text that labels what you're looking at. So again, I like to have this text to fade out 3/4 of the way into the transition, so I know that's fine. I can now grab freestyle and have this start 1/4 of the way into the previous transition, and then it will end as soon as the media ends as well. So that's fine, it's nothing complicated. You kind of just repeat yourself over and over and over again, but you have to check it every step of the way. So I'm happy with that. I can now do the final scene. I'm just going to do a quick save here. Let's quickly read a comment. Alberto says, I like videos and your intros are very good. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Pemby's Gaming World says, looking at the 99 lifetime option for this software. I just pay I think it's like works out to about £60 for a year, and it works out. I mean, the amount £60 for what this software can do for 12 months. I think that's more than worth it. That works out to less than what, £4 a month. I think something like that. I don't know. My maths is terrible sometimes, but that's fine. Let's move on to the next scene. So again, I've been a little bit lazy. I should have copied this image before I edited it. That way it just helps me have this ready, queued up, unedited, ready to go for the last scene. So I now need to unfade this. Very easy, to be honest. You literally just click, uncheck the box that says fade in and fade out, and then the opacity of the image returns back to stock. I now need to place the vanilla image here, and I need to move this to the left hand side of the screen. And this one, I think I'm going to focus a little bit. I'm basically just going to focus a little bit less on the gun. So I want to cut the gun off for about here. So let's go to tools and let's go to crop and zoom and pan. And we want to move this to the right. And we want to cut off about this much of the gun. We don't want to cut off too much because I'm trying to give you guys as much details, so you can kind of see the two bikes and a little bit more of the background. So there's a lot more depth of field being taken in. So this is vanilla. I now need to kind of match this image exactly. So I kind of look at points of the video where I need to match up. So I want the wheel to slightly be cut off on my second part of the video, and I want this part of the gun to match as well. So when I look at this image, I kind of have some reference points. I need to make sure it starts here, around about here, and it ends around about here. So you kind of got an idea of how you want to match that video and synchronize it up. So first step is to move it to the right, because again, both of these images are going to be sharing the same screen space. And I go to tools, crop, pan and zoom, and then you can move this image within itself. So I want this to be round about here. Again, see that little blue dot that I'm on? I want it to cut off just the beginning of that wheel. So that's okay. Let's have a look at it. I'm sorry about that. I haven't got a pop filter on, so I've kind of gone the wrong direction. So I need to do that again, but just the opposite direction. So do it about here. Let's have a look and see if that worked out. Okay, so for me that looks okay, but it's a lot easier to kind of put it down here right under the image so you can kind of have a direct look. So as you can see, there's a little bit more of the wheel showing on that side, so I need to move it to the left a little bit, and it's easier to work on the image on its own, so there's no distraction. So I now know I need to show a little bit more of that wheel just to get it perfect. I'll move it a little bit too much there. That should do it. So let's have a look now and see how that compares. So for me, that's pretty much perfect. That's pretty much perfect, and I'm happy with that. So let's just play that now and see how it looks. And this is where I'd like to stop it. So I'm going to split that here. And with this kind of music, you need to fade it out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to split the music here because I don't need to use it anymore. And I'm going to start my fade from about a quarter of the way in. So this is how the music will start fading from here. So this line will start to go down. And I'm happy with this. So I'm going to put my transitions in. Fade in and out for the top layer. And fade in and out for the bottom layer. And then I can label the last scene. Then I can build the video, and then that's pretty much how you make, or that's how I make my comparison videos anyway. So for you guys that have been watching, I hope you've learned something. I hope you've kind of seen the work that goes into making these productions for you. It does take a lot of time. It does take a bit of skill. You do need to kind of learn the software, and most importantly, you need to have the artistic vision. You can't just make these things, even if you know how to do it. You kind of got to have a vision of how it's going to turn out. I've kind of got used to it now. I've been doing this a long time. I started my channel in 2013, so for those of you guys that are looking at the moderate success that my channel's getting, it's taken a long time to get to this part, and I'm starting to kind of get where I want now. When I put up a video, I start to get a slight decent amount of views, and I'm happy to be in the position I'm in, but it's taken a long time to get there, so I don't take it for granted. Of course, I need you guys to support me and to subscribe, like, comment and share. That's pretty much how you build. So let's have a look at the last scene just to make sure everything's exactly in sync, and then if I'm happy with it, I'll just place my ending, check the audio levels, and then I'll start producing the video. So that's perfect. So I'm just going to have a quick look at the comments. So User says, hello, do you have Twitch? Nope, I do not. Creole Gaming says, hello. Alberto says, what is this program? This program is called Cyberlink PowerDirector 17. And this looks like French, and I'm not French, so I cannot read that. Yeah, so that's all done. The video is done. I'm not going to rewatch it. You know what, I'm just going to rewatch it, but it's not going to flow smoothly because it's only a preview. But you guys can have a quick look at the project I've been working on for the last hour, so check it out. So this is where I'm pretty much doing quality control, making sure things fade in and fade out as and when they should. For example, this one in particular, I'm not happy with that. That has faded in way too quick. So what I'm going to do is move this in a little bit, trim only. You don't want to mess up your whole timeline. I want to move this in so it's 3/4 of the way in, and then that will be perfect. I'm going to double check this one as well, because this one seems to be a little better. This one could still be a bit more, so let's move this one in a little bit. To be honest, that one's alright, so yeah, let's start again from the start of the movie, and then that. I just wasn't happy with the first transition, but everything else, it seems to be okay. So that's fine, that's a lot better. Okay, so that's the video checked out. That's just me doing a bit of quality control. I'm happy with that. I'm just gonna insert my ending. So I've got folders with all of my stuff. So this is the ending I use most of the time. I'm just gonna make sure that the audio levels are good because generally this song's pretty loud. So I'm just gonna bring that down a little bit. Just quickly test that, and then that's the end of the video, and I'll produce that right in front of you guys and get it uploading. Okay, so that's a wrap. So now I'm just going to produce this. Before I produce it, of course, I'm going to make a quick save just in case I spot something later and then I have to come back and fix it. So I'm going to produce this at 4K because that's where all the media is. That's a resolution of the media that I'm working with. I'm going to produce this onto my desktop and I'm just going to start building it. Now, this gives you like an image, a preview of how far you've gone along. So this is going to be estimated to be about 1.3 gigabytes. I'll upload it at that size. Of course, YouTube will do its thing, compress it. It'll be smaller by the time you guys watch it. So don't think it's just going to kill your data if you're watching on a mobile device or something. It will be like, it'll probably end up being something like, I don't know, 40 megabytes or something like that. So don't worry too much. So yeah, so now the video is building. This is where the i9-9900K flexes its muscle. So let's have a quick look at the task manager. As you can see, utilization is at 100%. All cores, all 8 cores are at 5 gigahertz and they are doing the work for me. So for those of you guys that are like, why do you need an i9-9900K? This is why I need an i9-9900K, because I do a hell of a lot of video editing. So when you edit things like this, when you've got multiple transitions going on, you've got dual images working at the same time, you've got overlay text, this kind of stuff does stress the CPU a lot. As you can see, I'm using 11 gigabytes of my memory. I've got 32 gigabytes, so it's not really a big deal. But this is why I built such a beast of a system. Not only does it make me play games very, very nicely and very, very well, it also it also does the work that I need it to do very, very well. So I'm just gonna have just so I know some of you guys are curious, I'm gonna quickly bring up CPU temp so you guys can see how hot the CPU is while I'm doing this kind of building. So let's have a look at core temp. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see this very well. Let me just quickly put my image back up. So all cores are around 50 to 60 degrees. So for any of you guys wondering what my CPU load is while I'm building my videos, it's not very bad, to be honest. There are heavier loads. 100% load doesn't necessarily mean the hardest test. It all depends on the workload. So an AVX load for something like Blender would be a bit more stressful, but that's not something I do typically every day. So having my CPU at 5 gigahertz, look at it, it's very, very happy at 60 to 70 degrees. It doesn't really bother my CPU. My fans are barely spinning at all. So any of you guys worrying about my overclock, it really, really isn't a big deal for me. Of course, I've got a really good water cooled system, so that does help. But again, that's where the money goes. You want to have a quiet PC, you want to have a reliable PC, and you want it to run cool as possible. So yeah, that's where the money goes, and it really does provide the performance and at the acoustic levels that I desire as well. So I'm happy with it, but you know how it is with PCs, you always want more. And for me, I've got an RTX 2080 Ti. To some of you, excessive. To me, it's not. A game at 4K. I can honestly say it's genuinely is a single 4K gaming solution. We have been waiting for one for a very, very long time, and I know Nelly D Gamer will agree with me. It is a single 4K gaming card. Yes, there is maybe 5% of games that won't maintain 60 FPS at ultra settings, but they're very far and few in between. Absolutely kills The Witcher 3 with everything maxed out at 4K, and that's a quite demanding game. You want to play something like Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5 without ray tracing at maximum, it will give you 60 FPS at 4K, no problem. It's such a beast of a card. And when you really think about it, in the UK specifically, you can get my card in particular for under £1,000. So about 995 you can get it for. Yes, that's a lot of money, but when you consider the alternative for 4K gaming solutions, you're either going to be getting two RTX 1080 Ti's or two Vega 64s. Those are both going to set you back close to, well, the Vega 64s will probably set you back around 700 quid. You can get them for about 350 to 400 now. So 700 to 800 pounds. The GTX 1080 Ti's are going to set you back about £1,000. You'll be lucky to get them for 450 each, because the cards are still very, very capable. So when you kind of look at it, this card is not going to give you the headache of SLI. This card is not going to give you the you don't need to worry about if the card's going to support multi GPU. You just literally play and it does the job for you. So it's worth the money in my opinion. If you want to claim at 4K with a single card, it is the only card in any kind of attainable price point that can do the job. The RTX Titan is just £2,500. Get the hell out of here and walk. It's not something for the average user. You know, if you can afford one, more power to you. I don't hate on you. It's one thing I don't do. If you're someone that can afford the best, I'm never going to be one to hate. I just kind of say, hey, you know, maybe one day I'll get there as well. So I kind of use that as motivation. So that's my thought process anyway. So we are, what would we say, about 70% into rendering this, almost finished now. I'm obviously not going to show you guys the uploading process because it's it's not required, but you guys have pretty much got the gist of how I edit my videos, and I hope this has been educational. I hope this has been slightly entertaining, but for the most part, just so you guys can see the hard work that goes into maintaining a channel like mine. It does take a lot of my own personal time, and for anyone that wants to do something similar, don't let it stop you, don't let it put you off. Just start slowly, work at your own pace, look at what you're doing, kind of kick back and kind of look and say, okay, I've done this, how can I do it better? Listen to your viewers. Not all criticism you're going to use, but it's always good to kind of let your viewers have a voice. Some people I find are quite ignorant. They'll kind of tell you how you should do it, and you know, damn, your opinion be damned, or your feelings about it be damned. I don't get on with people like that. You may find I argue quite a lot with my viewers. Thing about me, I don't really care about being this politically correct kind of nice guy image. I'm not trying to do that. If you come at me and you insult me with no kind of provocation and it's not warranted, I will defend myself. And if it gets to the point where I need to ban you or block you, I will do so without hesitation. It's not gonna bother me. As long as my comment sections don't turn toxic, I'd rather you never be able to comment on my channel again, to keep my comment section clean, than to have like a troll that just gets everyone fighting against each other. That's why, you know, it's try to be, what I'm really trying to say is try to be, you can be critical of my work, but do it within reason, and try to just try and approach someone when you're trying to get your message across. Try to do it in a way you'd want to be spoken to. Don't just tell someone this is crap, you should have did this. They're less likely to take that criticism under advisement. That's all I'm really trying to say. So anyway, that's all of the that is the rendering process complete. Very boring, I know, but oh, actually, I'll show you something that you might like to see. So I make thumbnails for my videos, of course, so I'll show you how I do it. So I literally just, I don't think I can do it while live streaming, so I'm not going to show you, but yeah, I make thumbnails for my videos, but I'll show you that maybe another day. Probably not the best time to do it, but I'm going to end the stream now, guys. Thanks very much for watching. I'll upload the video now. It should be live, I would say, by 11:15, so it's 10 to 10 over here in the GMT in the UK, so that should be live by about 11:15 p.m. because I've got quite fast fiber optics, so it should be up there pretty quickly. I'm just going to wait for YouTube, of course, to allow the 4K quality image, so I won't be publishing that video until it gets to 4K. So again, guys, thanks for watching. I do appreciate you guys stopping by, and I'll see you guys in the next video.